What's happening, gang? It is Thursday at 10, and it's time for The Truth. Welcome to Truth Radio. We track down some local leaders, sharing some industry-specific secrets, telling lessons and stories from personal experience with one rule in here: you got to tell the truth. With one goal, to leave you a little better than how we found you. I'm your host, Jesse Ibañez, co-founder of the Greenhouse Group, helping folks get into and out of homes. Alex, you might say that's our day job. You can check us out and learn a little bit more about who we are and what we do at thegreenhousegroupinc.com. And gang, so check this out, right? I mean, we're all, suckers for the pop culture game. We all grew up on these legends. I'm an MTV baby, so looking and staring in back at the boob tube at Prince, Michael Jackson, David Bowie. And, interesting, to at least a couple of those, they battled it out, on the charts all those years, all that time. And there's a different battle that's being fought. Maybe some won, some lost now after their untimely passings. And so I wanted to get Alejandra Rodriguez, and she's the owner of Rodriguez Law Offices. What has this got to be, like your fourth or fifth time in Truth Nation?
No, it's the third time.
Oh, it's only third time. Okay.
Third time's a charm. Each time has been awesome.
But you occupy such a space that makes it feel like it's so much more than that. And I want to thank you for coming back on and hammering through some of these estate planning. I'm the only one that claps for you, by the way. Fans wrapped around the stadium right now chanting your name, but I'm the only one here clapping. And by the way, for those who don't know you yet, perhaps you could do a quick little who am I?
Yeah, so Alex Rodriguez, and I'm an estate planning attorney, and my office is in Mission Valley, actually right in Hazard Center, right next door to Barnes & Noble. There's a convenient office building right there. And
Not far from the Greenhouse Group.
Yeah, just down the street from you guys. And I've been doing this for about 10 years now, and I love it, and I love working with families and helping them protect their loved ones. And I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and I'm excited to have you. RodriguezLawOffices.com if you want to do a little voyeuring in on our lovely guest here. While she shares with us, let's start with Prince and David Bowie, okay? Right. So, and a cautionary tale, right? Because as you look at those two estates being played out now, they have a very different tune, pardon the pun. So why don't you walk us through that a little bit?
Right. So, all right, let's start with Prince. Prince, that's, I think, in the forefront right now of the media, just because he did die without a will. And so because he didn't have a will in place, in the beginning, there was a lot of talk about, well, maybe it's, at the attorney's office, or maybe it's at their home. Are they going to find the will? Who are the heirs? And
so he didn't even have a will, let alone like a trust.
No, he didn't have anything in place, zero planning. And so his full sister, she ended up petitioning the court, the probate court, to get the probate started to get his assets through this process so it can get transferred to the beneficiaries. And through the course of that, she did state in the petition that there was no will, or she couldn't find a will. And so when you go through probate, you basically have to adhere to whatever the probate code says. So he could have opted out of the probate code by putting it in writing, either in a will or a trust. But since he didn't do that, now you have to look at the probate code. And the probate code says it goes to, since his parents are deceased, both of them, it goes to his siblings. And so that includes his full sister, and then he has 5 half siblings. And so that, were you following that on the news at all, or?
No.
Okay. So some of the people that I was speaking to, some colleagues, just friends, were saying, well, that's odd. Why would it go to his half siblings? Why wouldn't it just be the full sibling? But that's his brothers and sisters from his dad from a prior marriage. And, it could very well be that he knew that this was what the probate code said and that he was okay with that, and he didn't really feel the need to take further steps. Or, he just didn't have the foresight to plan ahead, which is unfortunate. So right now it's in probate court, and that is going to be a pretty costly affair.
Yeah, and without going down that rabbit hole completely, if someone's kind of hearing that for the first time right now, what's the quick little thing to make sure, like the lesson you might say about why you want to try to avoid probate court?
So it's expensive and it's time consuming. So this one, his is in Minnesota, so I don't know about the specific laws in Minnesota, but at least in California, it's a minimum of a year and it's extremely expensive. So those are the two main reasons why you would want to avoid it. Plus, it's also a public affair. So anyone can go down to the probate court and pull the records and find out everything that's going on, all the assets that are in your estate. And so that's what's basically going on with Prince. And if he had done, let's say, a trust or done some planning, he could have kept it more private.
So that was the estate formerly known as Prince.
Yeah.
Right? So now David Bowie, right? Unfortunately, we all woke, I don't know, what was that, about 2 or 3 months back now, something like that?
I think it was in January.
Oh, wow. So even more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy. It's amazing how fast time's flying right now.
Yeah.
But so what did we learn from watching David Bowie's estate play out?
So with David Bowie, he actually put something in writing. So he had a will. For whatever reason, I'm not quite sure why, but he didn't have a trust in place, but he did at least have a will. And so
he could direct his intentions, although maybe still a little clunky. Do you still have to go through probate when you have a will?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the one takeaway from this is that whether you die with a will or without a will, either way, you're going to end up in probate court. And so really the only thing I can maybe think of is in a situation like David Bowie, where he had a really huge estate. Perhaps they wanted not the creditor protections, but they wanted the statutory limitations that you have to adhere to in probate court, where basically it says, if you're a creditor, you have to file a claim within 4 months. At least that's here in California. Again, specific states have different laws. So maybe that was one reasoning. I'm not really sure how his attorneys advised him with that. But so he did have a will, and his will stated that half would go to his wife and then half would go to the other half would get divided 2 ways, one with the child he had with his wife, Iman, and then the other half, so a quarter, to his son from a prior marriage.
Got it.
Yeah.
So, and that's nice because he was able to, with that directive, eschew the judge having to make those calls for him. Still had to go through probate, still expensive, still time consuming, but...
Right.
He was able to at least have his intentions.
And he got to choose his executors. And so he got to say, these are the individuals that I want to be managing these assets on behalf of my family and, doing that process for him. So he had a lot more control with respect to that. The other thing, too, is with going back to Prince, Prince was like an extremely private person, right? So if you've heard anything about it, like on the news, like he was just extremely private. And it seems that he was also really prolific with his music. So he has like a treasure trove of all of these unreleased music and songs. And he was just, storing them away in his vault. And so now what it seems like is because he didn't have anything in place, like a will, or a trust directing what is to happen to these assets, and specifically these unreleased songs, then he basically has lost all control. So now, they could sell it. Like maybe he didn't want them released. Maybe he wanted them released in a specific way. All of that is out the door. He's just kind of at the mercy of the beneficiaries or the estate if it needs to sell those assets to become liquid. Because that's the other thing I was following up, which I thought was really interesting. Since he has zero planning in place and his estate was, they're estimating maybe it's $300 million. And
wow.
So he has no planning in place. And the other thing to keep in mind is that there's going to be a crazy amount of taxes that are due, estate taxes. And so the estimates are going to be probably half of whatever is in his estate. So let's say if it's $300 million, half of that's going to go straight to taxes. So really, when it comes down to it, we're working with a lot, or they're going to be working with a lot less. But the other thing to keep in mind is that those taxes have to get paid So whatever, $150 million has to get paid within 9 months from the date of his death. Ooh. So that basically puts them at January where, and if he doesn't have enough cash in his estate, that means that they're going to have to do a fire sale. His homes or these unreleased songs, they're just going to have to start liquidating that to pay these taxes because the IRS isn't going to wait, right?
So much stuff's coming up for me about this, and I feel like we're going to have to hit it in the next segment when we also bring in Michael Jackson and the Zucks, Mark Zuckerberg, and learn from these estate planning issues that are you're either on its train or you're on its tracks. You've either had this in place or it's going to basically take you down, right?
Right.
So, final thoughts on this. I want to almost ask the question, like, what would the fix have been, in these both of these situations, but definitely in Prince's?
For Prince, he needed to have some sort of plan in place, a will, at the very least, just a will, just to specify, yes, I want it to go to all of my siblings, or maybe he just wanted it to go to his full sibling who he was closer to. But having a will in place or ideally a trust to keep it out of the public eye would have been good. And then same thing for David Bowie. For whatever reason, he just had a will in place, which makes it super public. Mm-hmm. If he had had a trust, that would have been a lot more private.
That's interesting. Is there any advantage of someone not doing a trust? I mean, because it's like money obviously was not the issue with these guys,
right?
And even if Prince, if like he was so private, like, you know what I mean? Like, so is there something I'm missing? Like, why wouldn't they have done that?
The only thing I can think is that, so this is the thing. If there's going to be like will contests or if there might be disputes, sometimes it would make sense to get that in front of the court so that a judge is supervising that process if you think that it's going to be a super contentious plan. But, at least with David Bowie, I don't really see that being the case. It was his wife and he had 2 kids. And, so in my opinion, I don't think there really was much of a benefit for him. But, who knows?
In her opinion, gang, that's why we got her live. Truth Nation, leaving you a little better than how we found you. That is our guest, Alejandra Rodriguez, Rodriguez Law Offices. We're going to be coming right back with an appending on this conversation. We're bringing in old Michael Jackson, old MJ, and our buddy Zucks over at Facebook. We'll be right back.